another go-round of SDH. John, hear you there. Thanks for dropping by, as you always do. And it's another week where we'll break it all down for you starting here today. Here's the plan. We have Abe Gordon coming up in about 10 minutes. We'll go over Abe's thoughts now that he's had some time to have them ruminate and stick around in his brain a little bit after Atlanta United loses to Philadelphia by the score of 1-0 on the weekend. We'll have a lot of Major League Soccer to get into. Tomorrow is kind of evolving into the high school wrap-up for the year, catching up with coaches that we haven't had the chance to catch up with. Man, my hair is all over the place. So tomorrow kind of turned into soccer is in session. And right now, we're going to be hearing from Blessed Trinity, Drew Charter, and Lovett. So we'll be drifting in and out of news of the day in high school tomorrow. So we'll probably take care of most of Major League Soccer and Atlanta United today. So Abe Gordon joining us at 9:15 to talk about Atlanta United. In the bullpen, we do have sound from Ronnie Dylo, Matt Edwards, and Jay Fortune after the match. And then at 10 o'clock, we've got Bart Keeler from the SoccerForUSPod. There were a lot of moments from the weekend to kind of get into, from FA Cup to Serie A. Bart's got to talk me through what happened with Atlanta United on the one instance where I thought that there might have been something to discuss. Apparently, I'm cuckoo. And so Bart will talk about that. And then there's a star here in Major League Soccer that thinks that Major League Soccer needs to work on their refereeing. So we'll get into that with Bart. We've also got your news of the day and anything else that's on your mind. Here is the rundown for the week as we know it right now. So it is today being today. Tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock kick. It is Atlanta United 2 and Crown Legacy. This was slated for last night originally up at the Fraction, but unplayable surface up at Kennesaw State means that the game is now switched, and it's in Charlotte, suburban Charlotte. It's at Sportsplex at Matthews. So it's at Matthews tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7:03 kick. You'll hear that on the network at soccerdownhere.mixler.com. I'll have the call for you there, and you will hear from Steve Cook. You'll hear from Rodrigo Neri. You'll hear the weekend that was in the mashup, and we'll get you ready for the game coming up at 7:03 tonight, but 6:30 pregame and 7:03 kick for Atlanta United 2 and Crown Legacy. Tomorrow, once again, Blessed Trinity, Drew Charter, and Lovett. Right now in the show on Tuesday, where once again there were about a half a dozen coaches that we're trying to track down and see if we can put a bow on the high school season. So that's going to be tomorrow. Wednesday, it's going to be Tyler and Dylan once again at 9:15 and at 10. Then right now, Wednesday, we have our first show at the Moxie Midtown. So Moxie Midtown is slated for 7 o'clock, and we'll have some special guests, but it'll be good to catch up with all of you, for those of you who are in Midtown on Wednesday. So it'll be Moxie Wednesday this go-round. That's at 7 o'clock. Thursday, opposition research with Laurel Failer. She's going to bat leadoff on her way to FC Cincinnati's practice. And we're also hoping to catch up with our friends at Decatur FC because their season starts Friday night in the WPSL. We have also put out the siren song to UFA, AFU, and to Chattanooga FC, who are in the division, and Georgia Impact with next week with their start. So we're going to try and catch up with everybody in the Southeast Conference in that particular division. So we're going to start with Decatur FC. That's going to be on Thursday, and then Friday is the Hours of Chaos to get you ready for the weekend with Atlanta United and the home match with FC Cincinnati. Friday night, as of right now, it is slated Atlanta United and Orlando City B on the network, 7 o'clock from, once again, the Fraction, but keep an eye on that. So we'll see if that stays or if that is a go or if it flip-flops or something like that. So we have two matches with the twos this week. Tonight at 6:30, pregame on the network, 7:03 kick. And then Friday, it is scheduled 7 o'clock, 7:30 kick. And we'll get into all of that coming up in just a little bit. Morning, Abby. Morning, Ricky. And so that's what we've got planned right now. So that's the plan right now as it all breaks down this week. So once again, the week hasn't even started, and it's a pretty busy week. So right there, that's how it's looking right now with everything else. We do have some stuff that we're planning on rolling over to tape and things like that, and some stories that we have posted. But that is the week that will be. Let's talk about the weekend that was and catch up with Abe Gordon from 92.9 The Game, and we will see if he is properly hydrated as we get into this particular segment. So are you properly hydrated, sir?
No, probably not. I'm rarely hydrated properly first thing in the morning because I drink an energy drink on the way to work as opposed to copious amounts of electrolyte water. But I'll get there throughout the day before I find the energy to work out later. So I'll get there.
Yes, there you go. Okay, so then now that you've had time, I know that you and I get to catch up on home dates for the full-time report. There were some moments or just some overarching optimism for you going forward about how things were for Atlanta United on the field, not looking at results, mind you, but looking at what you were seeing on the pitch. Now that you've had an extra 36 hours to take a peek at it, what else sticks in your head?
Yeah, look, there's no way to walk around how frustrating it is to lose another game, to lose one at home. But if I'm going to be optimistic, and you're certainly running out of time to feel that way, because you are not in this early stretch of the season, and you know where things can get corrected. You don't have that much time for that anymore. But I did think the performance itself was much better on Saturday night, and doing so against a very good Philadelphia squad, a team that is now atop the table in the Eastern Conference. And so if you could find a way to bottle that, if you could find a way to continue that upward trend, then maybe you can find a way to get some points here at home. Again, two very difficult games coming up, and you're almost at the halfway point at that point of the season, and not much to show for it. But it did feel a little bit more like some of those games, match day 3, 4, 5, 6, some of those moments where you're like, man, it felt like they played even or even better than their opponents and just didn't get the result. I certainly feel better about having that discussion than I do, man, they got completely outplayed and the scoreline showed. And we had a couple of those games too, including the first matchup with Philly, as a matter of fact. And so, look, they've got to find a way to turn around the results. There's no doubt about that. But I do think if we see performances more similar to what we saw Saturday night, that is likely and possible. It's another game, and John, I've talked about this all year long. It's too easy to score on Atlanta United. It's just other teams don't work hard enough. And I think we saw another instance of that this weekend. It's a long ball, and Goose, he'll tell you 10 times out of 10, he's got to play that away. He completely misplays it, completely misses it. In the aftermath, it just Luis Abraham's hand is out. I don't know how else he's supposed to slide, but it's unlucky. He goes to the penalty spot, and then Goose, for the second time in probably 2.5 minutes, will tell you, I've got to do better, because he guesses right. And I mentioned it Saturday night. I think it's maybe the 5th penalty kick he's faced. I don't think he's guessed properly on any of the previous ones. He guessed right. It got under him. He's too good to let a ball that he's covered, by the way. It's not beyond him. It went under him. Yeah. He's got to do better on that. And then there's the other instances on the other end. Got to find ways to score. Jamal Tiare has an open net header. Game's completely different if he puts that in. Andrew Rick, the goalie there for Philly, made a couple of really, really nice saves to keep his clean sheet intact. It's a combination of bad luck and bad finishing. And all in all, it's another goalless game for Atlanta United. If the results and performances and points are going to change, that's the first thing that has to go. And they talked about it. Ronnie Dyla was pretty succinct. We're weak, and he mentioned in both boxes, but specifically in finishing, they just have not been tactical or clinical at any point this year.
So you look at how it was, with the starting lineup, with rotation, with the individuals that were there. What did you think about the 11 that was trotted out, having it be your third match in 8 days?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's tough to weigh some of that because of Brooks Lennon having to come out relatively early and having to pull Saba in at that point. Mm-hmm. But I thought up until when Brooks had to go out, and I mentioned this to Maddie, I mentioned this to you, I mentioned this to a couple members of the United media relations group. Like, it just felt like in the first half, that was the first time all year they felt connected and on the same page up top. And again, ultimately, we're saying this with the idea that they didn't score any goals and it didn't amount to anything. But they did feel a little bit more dangerous. And I also think you've gotten to see a couple of youngsters here really step out and star in this 5-3 formation. Jay Fortune and Matt Edwards have become mainstays, not even the right word, like must start players. I mean, you just have to have them on the field if this is the formation that you're going to use. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do this weekend if Brooks is still out and welcoming in Cincinnati. But I thought certainly from the back in the midfield they were pretty good for the most part. And the attack, again, it seemed connected finally, but they didn't get the final product. I still think Miggy is just not quite whatever he's supposed to be, and that's frustrating. And then again, a couple of close calls that maybe an extra pass, maybe there's pressure on guys that feel the need to show up for the club and they want to get on the scoreboard themselves. An extra pass here or there probably would have gotten a goal.
And to your point about Matt and Jay and how it could look, yes, if you do go with that 5-1, the 5-2 holding sixes and your 3 in the attack, or your 5-1, 3-1, whatever you want to look at it. Are you staring at something where not knowing? Then, like I said, it's Monday. We got days, but as of right now, Pedro being healthy would have him on the left.
Yeah.
Then your center backs would be Luis, Derek, and then trying to figure out what it's going to be. I know that you were leaning toward Noah Cobb.
Yeah, I'd be interested just because of the positional flexibility of Matt Edwards, and you've seen him been able to do so much. I'd be interested in Noah Cobb as part of the 3 center backs and potentially Matt Edwards on the right in replacement of Brooks Lennon. And look, that probably ultimately keeps Saba on the bench. And I still think Saba's danger enough that he could probably be starting, but you only got 11 starters, man. And so you're running out of numbers at that point. But that does allow you to potentially put Saba in later in the second half. And he can kind of serve as your super sub if you need a goal or if you need some defending up the field as well. But I'd be interested if they do want to use Cobb as part of a center back and Matt Edwards on the right.
So as I sit here and I workshop this, you see my incredibly scientific version of trying to figure out a starting 11 with 5 at the back. So if
I'd have the same starting 11 you had, it just essentially while they're changing positions, you would have Noah in for Brooks Lennon, but obviously Noah would slide central and Matt Edwards go out right. But that's the only change I would make. And I guess Latte Loth up top. I forgot he didn't start, but probably that change as well. But everything else, I think probably you could keep.
So you're looking at Tristan as your 6, and I'll put that in quotation marks. Then Miranchuk, what is it? So you've got Miranchuk, Miggy, Jay, and Latte Loth. Is that what you're staring at?
Yeah, and you could probably, if you want to go back to Sleesh, and maybe you were just resting him because of the compression, and Moyamba comes off the bench. I think that's a fair consideration too, but I would not be taking Jay Fortune out at this point.
No. What we have seen from Jay and Matt and Noah, and this is the conundrum that you have, and Abby brings it up in the Twitch pitch this morning, where you see from the younger players, the ones that have come up through the system, the desire to gain results, to fix things that are wrong. But you're trying to figure out, okay, you've invested in the DPs, you're not getting anything in the DPs. How long do you stick with the DPs and go with the younger players? That's what you're stuck in right now with the DPs versus the younger players that are performing and have that hunger that we're seeing day in and day out.
Yeah, and look, I've been across any sport, not just here in MLS, across any sport. I don't really care about contracts. I care about the end result. And I'd like to think that if it was a guy that's on a rookie deal could beat out a veteran and perform better, then that's what they would do. And yeah, some of this questioning is about, all right, so you just want to, sit the DPs. I understand that. You don't really have the fill-ins for all of them. I guess in theory, we're talking about what? Latte Loth and TRA flop. I mean, certainly Luke Brennan, maybe I think is probably the name a lot of people want to see.
Yeah.
I like Will Riley. I don't know if he really has a role right here in replacing a DP. Now, if you're talking about sitting Moyamba or sitting Sleesh in favor of Will Riley, but that's not a DP. That wasn't the question you asked me.
Right.
And I just don't know, just based on what you're hoping to get from Alexei Miranchuk, if you have a young academy kid that's in replace of that. And so I understand why you'd want to see. I want to see Brennan too. And I think they should consider him a lot more often than they have. Not that we don't like Mosquera or whatever, but I'd like to see Brennan come in the 65th, 75th minute sometimes when you're searching for a goal as well. I know he's got that nasty streak a little bit as well.
Yeah.
But more importantly, he just wants to go forward and score. And he wants to take people on. And I just think this team has missed some of that boat carrying, if you will.
Yeah. And so, you're looking at, with that 5, do you have Jay as your second 6? Do you have Alexi on the left? That way it gives Alexi room to create and drop back and help out defensively, while Miggy is on the right-hand side, comes into his left foot with Latte Lot up top. So, that I think that the easier part of this discussion is the back. And you're not giving up a lot of goals who you have at the back, but the discussion is putting the ball in the back of the net, not keeping the ball from getting into the net. And so that's where all of these questions are coming from, how you set up your 2 6s in Ronnie Dyla's ideas in his head versus, and the forwards going, the midfielders and the forwards in the attack. That back line is the least of your concerns right now as you're piecing things together, working forward to get things done offensively.
Yeah, no, I think you've seen, and when they kind of started to move from 4 in the back to 5 in the back, and they did this at times last year, but it was a certain matchup, and they wanted to have 5 defenders against Miami's 3 attacker, whatever it was. But I do certainly think you're starting to see a little bit better coordination, communication, and coverage on the backside there with 5 in the back. So I don't think it's just a short-term matchup thing. I think this is probably what they need to be doing moving forward. Now, the problem with 5 in the back is you got an extra defender and maybe not as much pushing forward. And I just don't think it's about numbers. I think it's about moments. I think it's about individuals. I mentioned Miggy hasn't been good enough as an individual to create the goal-scoring opportunities. I know it was more TRA in the first half. He had a moment. Wasn't good enough in that moment. That needs to be a goal. And I think there were certainly moments from Latte Loth and certainly moments from Saba. I mentioned maybe one extra pass would have gotten a goal for you as well. So it's a combination of things, but I just think as much as, and this is where like making a change maybe does raise the eyebrow a little bit. I just think individuals haven't been good enough in those key moments. And maybe Brennan will be able to find the back of the net in a manner that Miggy hasn't.
Miggy's numbers, for those that might have missed them, 27 to 36, passing at 75%. The 4 key passes are good. 1 cross connecting on the day, 1 of 7 on his duels. He was fouled 1 time, and then the only defensive marker he had was 1 interception on the day. So that was what Miguel Almiron gave you in playing 90 minutes again. And the XA, not an XA, but an XA was a 0.16. He almost had the 1 assist on the day. But yeah, there aren't a whole lot of markers in Miggy's activity in the matchup against Philly across the board.
Yeah, one of the concerns I have about Miggy, and it happens to everyone, okay? I don't think defenders are scared of his speed. And I think that changes how they are able to and are required to defend him. We just haven't seen him getting into open space and running by anyone. And he's a lot closer to 30 now than he is to 20, like he was when he was first with the club. And I think that lack of burst maybe has changed how he's being defended. And because of that, we also don't see him able to cut in and able to pull off some dribbles, one kind of the way we saw Jay win one in that game. And yeah, I do ask the question if Luke Brennan would be more interesting in that role, because he will take you on with the dribble, and he's not going to rely just on speed, even though he has it. I just think it's a slightly lesser than we had earlier in his career, Miggy, and I think we need to open our eyes to that and either put him in a role that will best suit what he's able to do at this stage of his career, or take a longer look at making adjustments. And look, no one wants to say this. No one's enjoying Miggy not necessarily being as productive as we had hoped. But reality is, and this is not just a soccer thing, and here's the problem, John, is that you've kind of been twisted at the lifespan of some of the greatest of all times, right?
Yeah.
Messi and his, quote, prime is not common in this sport. And I think we've seen a lot of guys who hit their primes. It's there for 3 or 4 years, and then it kind of fades away. And I just wonder if we're on the wrong side of Miggy's prime. And even though he's still younger, athletically, under 30 in most sports is when you're just hitting your prime. In soccer, your prime is 22, 23, 24, 25, especially if you're an attacking player, a little bit older for defensemen and even older for goalies, obviously. But it just feels like we're on the wrong side of his prime, and you have to consider what he can give you, how to maximize it, or if you need to make changes.
And to your point, that we always, one of the terms we always like to have here is positional gravity. And if you are someone that draws more than one individual, then that means that somebody's open. And if you're only drawing one dude, then that means that the matchups are there. And if you can win your one-on-ones, then you're not going to worry about your opponent. Right now, if you're looking at matchups, a lot of the time I think that folks, when they go up against Atlanta United, they sit there and it's like, okay, who do we sit there and double? And, who are we confident with in man coverage? And so I think that's what you're staring at on a week-by-week basis. And for Atlanta United fans, unfortunately, it comes out the other side with the defense ending up winning their matchups against Atlanta United offensively.
Yeah, and again, the other aspect of this is you did have some chances on Saturday, and you just have to finish them. And I'm not talking like once-in-a-lifetime hits. I'm talking about goals are open. Keeper makes a great save, great reaction to him, credit to him. You can't take that away from him. And Goose had one of those as well to keep it scoreless at the time. But when you have those moments where there's a net and it just needs one final move or one final product, that has to be there. Look, Brooks Lennon ripped one from deep. That's not one I'm talking about. If he hits that, great, but I'm not really expecting him to bury that upper 90. I think Ronald Hernandez, I don't even remember if it was this game or the game before. He had one from range as well. Again, I don't mind the shot. I love the idea of taking that shot, and Hernandez has an absolute cannon for a leg. But you're not really counting on that being the goals. Whether it was called offsides or not, Saba and TRA near the end of the first half had a pseudo breakaway. We've seen obviously the TRA header has to be put on net, and then even the week before, right? Was it Miggy had a breakaway and kind of one-on-one with the keeper, and he was being pushed towards the left.
Yeah, and he went with his right foot.
Again, those key moments, you got to find a way because you're just not creating as many chances. You were outshot. Shots on goal were in favor of Philly, all that stuff. And you just the chances you do have, especially the good ones, got to bury. And TRA knows that. It's a completely different game if he puts that header on net.
Yeah. All right. I know our time is shot, partner. Once again, what's the plans for us as we come up with yet another home match?
Yeah, we got another home match, and a reminder, it is Sunday Night Soccer, so it's going to be a day later than normal. On Sunday, pregame show, the Five Stripes Countdown will start at 6 o'clock with kickoff shortly. after 7. And I'm looking forward to this one. Again,
Oh, heartbreaker. I'm sticking with it. No, he froze. He froze.
performance itself was a little bit better and potentially, if they can recreate the performance, potentially a slightly different result. We'll see what happens.
All right, be good, my friend. We'll see you next week. All right, there goes Abe, and so there goes Abe, and so it's always good to catch up with Abe to start our days. So now Abe's computer is like misbehaving. He keeps logging into the green room and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, as always, great to catch up with Abe to start our week. Bart Keeler coming up in a half an hour. We'll go over the numbers for Atlanta United, and we'll go over the numbers involving individual players and stuff like that. Starting 11, we'll go through that once again. We got sound from Ronnie Dyla, we've got sound from Matt Edwards, got sound from Jay Fortune, and we'll get into all of that here. In this half hour, once again, Bart Keeler from the SoccerForUSPod is going to join us at 10 o'clock. We do have a lot of cards and calls this week, and I do have some reffing down here moments that I did want to get into with him. Everything from FA Cup to Serie A to Atlanta United, and we'll see what's going on with the USMNTs and the national the USNTs, not just the MNT or the WNT. We'll see if there's anything going on there when it comes to national team play. All right, let's get into all of the numbers and stuff that we were getting into. To Abe's point, you had the Brooks Lennon shot from distance in the 11th. I don't mind that, especially early on, if you're going to try and challenge a young keeper and see what he's made of. And Andrew Rick, he definitely had a couple of moments, especially the one save late as they were chasing after the equalizer north of 90 minutes. So the cupboard is not bare in Philadelphia when it comes to Semley and Rick, and trying to nurse Andre Blake back to health. So they're covered in that particular aspect. You had the Pedro Amador shot in the 17th. Jay Fortune had the shot in the 28th. Jamal had the shot from the entry pass from Amador, and that got you into that point where Ronnie Dyla was concerned after the first 30 to 35 minutes. And then it was Philadelphia for a long time when it came to game control and game state. The numbers on the day for Atlanta United, starting lineup, we'll go there to start. Brad in net, he had a 7.9 according to SofaScore. It was the highest score on the day. Alexei Miranchuk not far behind with a 7.8. We mentioned Miggy's numbers. Back 5, left to right. Pedro, Luis, Derek, Matt Edwards, Brooks Lennon. Your midfield 3 was Jay Tristan and Alexei Miranchuk, and then you had Jamal and Miggy listed. So SofaScore has it as a 5-3-2. Could have been a 5-1-2-1 somewhere in there, at points. Obviously, the Brooks Lennon injury brings Saba in after 20 minutes. But if Tristan is your 6, if you want to call it that, and then Jay comes forward, Alexei comes forward. At times it could have been a 5-3-2, could have been a 5-3-1-1 with Miggy playing behind Jamal and Latte Lat eventually. So once again, back 5, back 3 at points with Pedro and Saba going forward or Matt coming forward. However it wanted to look. So you had your 3 center backs and then the wings coming forward. So 3-5-2, 3-3, whatever. We always refer to things. We always refer to formations as a loose construct, especially after the ball is kicked. So that was what you were looking at. Your subs on the day. Saba came in the 20th minute for Brooks. Once again, we have no early word on Brooks. Latte Lat comes in for the final 25 after Jamal puts in a shift. Edwin comes in. Fast Eddie came in, got a yellow card as well. He came in for Tristan, played 23+. And then Bart came in for a cup of coffee at the end for Pedro Amador. Noah Cobb, Ronald Hernandez, Will Riley, and Mateus Click did not play in addition to Josh Cohen. So the stats in the overall before we get into individual numbers. Once again, we'll hear from Ronnie Dyla, Matt Edwards, and Jay Fortune. Possession, once again, Philadelphia doesn't care. Much like Shingles, Philadelphia doesn't care. It was 2-1, 65-35 by the end of the day. 2 big chances for Philly, 1 for Atlanta. Total shots, 14-10. Brad had 4 saves, and Andrew Rick had 3. 10 corners, 6 to Philly. 19 fouls, 10 to Philly. Twice as many passes once again. Philly didn't want the ball. They don't care. So the number of passes, no real surprise. Free kicks, 10-8 Atlanta. 5 yellow cards on the day, 3 to Philadelphia, 2 to Atlanta. And that should pretty much take care of it. Big chances, the 1 for Philadelphia, they scored. 1 big chance missed for Atlanta. Touches inside the 18, 47 on the day, 28 of them to Philadelphia. Fouled in the final third, 5 times, 3 to Philadelphia. 4 offsides on the day, 3 of those to Atlanta. Passes in the final third, 91-52. Atlanta completing them at a 68% passing rate. Long balls, 41-16. Once again, if you don't have the ball, you're going to have a number that is basically 2-1. Crosses, 4 on each side. We'll get into duels and defending. Interceptions, 23 on the day, 12 to Philadelphia. Recoveries, 92 on the day, 48 of those to Atlanta. Clearances, 49 on the day, 28 to Philly. And getting into the keeper numbers once again. Brad had the 1 punch clear, 2 high claims for Rick, 2 big saves for Rick compared to 1 for Brad Gazan. Goals prevented, 0.91 for Atlanta United to 0.46 for Philly. 7 saves on the day, 4 of those for Brad Gazan. Okay, now individual numbers. Getting into individual players on the day in your lineups category. As you're staring at the lineups, you had Pedro and Derek and Matt each running north of 7 on the day. Matt Edwards on the afternoon played the full 90 minutes, 2 clearances, a block, 3 picks, 3 of 6 in the air, and he had 87% passing, 58-67, 4 of 6 on his long balls on the afternoon. So that was Matt Edwards. Derek Williams on the day, and Derek was dropping some dimes from way back late when they were trying to get things oriented offensively. 6 clearances on the day for Derek Williams, 3 interceptions, 1 total tackle, 1 dribble pass. He was 8 of 14 on his duels, 7 of 12 in the air, 77 of 84 passing for Derek at 92%, 7 of 10 on his long balls, 1 shot on target, and he had the 1 big chance missed on the afternoon. And so that was Derek on the day. And then Pedro Amador. Pedro, once again, the 86 minutes, he had the cup of coffee for Bart Sleesh late. 1 clearance, 1 interception, 4 of 6 on his ground duels, won both of them in the air, so 6 of 8 on the afternoon, 42 of 50 passing at 84%, 1 key pass, 1 cross, 3 of 4 on long balls, 1 shot on target, 4 of 6 on the dribble for Pedro Amador. Then Alexei Miranchuk, and it was the 2-way play that you got from Alexei, and the sheer numbers was why I gave Alexei man of the match. Yes, I was considering Jay and Matt, but I gave it to Alexei this time. Expected assists at 0.36, 53 of 60 passing at 88%, 2 key passes, had the 1 cross, 10 of 12. Okay, so that has been adjusted. Initially, it was 11 of 14 on the day, but now they have dialed that back to 10 of 12 for Alexei on the afternoon. 1 dribble attempt successful, won every duel that he was in, 5 for 5. Fouled once, 2 clearances, a pick, and a tackle. Because he clicked all of those categories, pun unintentional, was why I gave it to him. And the sheer number that he had with his long balls, and the success rate that he had there, that was part of the reason why I gave it to Alexei on the afternoon. So why did you just? It's like I'm looking at my numbers, and all of a sudden it's just like they decide, yeah, we're just going to slide the page, and you're going to have to go fishing for it. So that was the number for Alexei. Jay Fortune on the afternoon. Played the full 90 minutes, 89% passing, a 49 of 55, 4 of 5 on long balls for Jay. Had the 1 shot off target, 8 of 12 on his duels, fouled 3 times, 1 interception, and 4 total tackles for Jay. And then we mentioned Miggy's numbers on the afternoon. But for those of you that might have missed that, Miggy played the full 90, and I know that there was probably a concern about the number of minutes that he'd racked up earlier in the week. So 27 of 36 passing for Miggy, 1 cross on the day, 4 key passes, and it was 1 of 7 on his duels. He was fouled once and had 1 interception. So that was Miggy on the afternoon playing the full 90 minutes. So those are your numbers for Atlanta United, but obviously at the end of the day, the only number that really matters is the one that Ty Baribeau scored on the penalty. And we'll talk to Bart Keeler about that and all the other cards and calls and reffing down here that we have coming up in about 20 minutes. So let's hear from Ronnie Dyla. Let's hear from Matt Edwards. Let's hear from Jay Fortune. And let's see if they actually did load. So, yeah, they did load. Okay, so first off, let's hear from Ronnie Dyla after the match, addressing a couple of different topics once again, courtesy of our friends at Atlanta United and the post-match here after the 1-0 loss to Philly.
I think we played a good first half. I think we were in control. We were locked in their half. We get spaces outside. We were switching play. We get inside the box. But we, again, it's a little bit deja vu. I say the same things every time. It's like, we have 5 big chances. We don't put nothing in the goal. And when they get their opportunity, they do it. And they won. They had a couple more. But I feel that when they get the ball in the box, they are more dangerous than us. That's the main part, So if they have a set play, I feel like something going to happen. When we have a set play, I don't see it. I feel we are not accurate enough, but not aggressive enough. And that's a challenge we have as a team. We can play as much as we want. I don't think Philadelphia is playing beautiful football and these things, but they go straight and they win balls and they get balls in the box and they are dangerous when crosses and set play is happening. That's the difference between us and them right now.
Do you feel like there was progress made? You talk about the first half. Do you feel like there was progress made in terms of the way the team was able to build up and kind of impose themselves on Philadelphia in that first half? Some counter pressing, some aggression going forward?
I think, but they changed. After 35 minutes, they changed their back 4 again. They started with a 5. So then in the first, they had 2 strikers. And we play out these 2 strikers all day. So we step with the ball with Luis and Matt all the time, and it caused them problems. Then to go to a 3, then we have to switch the play even quicker so we can get opportunities and feed wide and then come inside again and switch. Even though I think, we were in good control. When I come to the break, I have a good feeling. I feel like this is a half we can look at ourselves in the eyes and go from. And then we have, not a good start of the game. I think we come back again. And if I knew the answer of that, then of course we will do something. I asked them. It's difficult to say. Happened also in Austin. I think that is a more challenging thing than what you talk about the last 10, 15 minutes. I think the first 15 is not good enough in the second half. And then they score, and then we are over their half, and we get some great opportunities. It's like, we need to also be clinical when we get that. We play a team that has won a lot of football games, and we knew that. So it was an even game, but
Ronnie Dyla, head coach for Atlanta United. Bottom line, Philadelphia was more dangerous, and you see the end result by it all. He mentioned the first 30 to 35 minutes where Atlanta was getting forward with their center backs. He'd mentioned what he saw with Luis Abram as a part of that attack going forward, and then Philadelphia adjusts from their 5 to 4, and you see the success rate increase for Philadelphia at the end of the first half and for most of the second half, especially through the penalty and the goal by Ty Baribeau that gets you to the 60th minute. From there, obviously, once again, Philadelphia is just trying to get out of town. And if you look at the flow chart for game flow, dominance, whatever, you see that Atlanta United was dominant in that final 30 minutes, but it's basically because they're chasing at that point and Philadelphia is yielding at that point. It's like, we want you to do all the effort. We've got a lead, time for you to do all the effort. And so that's why if you look at game flow and flow charts and things like that, you see Atlanta United dominant in possession in that final 30 minutes for obvious reasons. So there you go with those particular thoughts from Ronnie Dyla. Also in the locker room after the match, it was the Hoff and Maddie and the assembled media catching up with Jay Fortune and Matt Edwards. Here's the conversation that they had with Jay Fortune, once again, courtesy of our friends at Atlanta United after the match.
I mean, I don't want to speak for him per se to say
No,
this.
just
but
in your opinion.
In my opinion,
Yeah.
I think these guys. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to try and find a way to get us back in the game. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe towards the end, we try and do it in just one pass when it could be maybe 2 or 3. I think trusting in each other a little bit more is key. But maybe it's everybody wants to try and be the guy, and there's anything wrong with that. But I think maybe that's a bit of it. I think it's everybody has the mindset of we want to win the game, we get back in the game. I'm going to try and take the game by the scruff of the neck, and maybe sometimes that's what it is. Sometimes it's not.
How frustrating is it to let this game get away from you guys?
Probably guess. Another game at home, one that we had chances to go up in, chances to win, and we didn't. So.
Looking at the match and looking at the ones coming up, what do you guys need to see change in training to get the results on the field?
I don't know. I think it's very hard to say that nobody doesn't want to give the best effort, wants to win, but at the end of the day, it's simply not good enough, myself included. If we're not winning, then I have to change something. I have to be better. And I'm sure that's the mindset of a lot of guys out there. But it's very easy to sit here and say what we need to do. But at the end of the day, I believe the next game's on Sunday. It's more important.
Jay Fortune after the match with Matty Cruz and the assembled media there in the locker room. So let me hide that font. Well, and here is Matt Edwards after the match. So let me see if I can get my font in for Matt Edwards here before I start. Let's see. I'll call him a defender this go around. A defender. Nice going, Nelson. All right. So that's Jay Fortune. And it's also now time to hear from Matt Edwards after the match in the locker room for Atlanta United. So Matt Edwards and Matty Cruz, courtesy of Atlanta United and Matty Cruz.
For you guys today?
We just couldn't get the ball in the back of the net today. I think today I feel like we were a lot better in the first half. We came out slow again in the second half, which is a trend of ours that we need to address. Cheap goal giveaway from all of us because of how slow we came out. And then we're chasing the game. We still have big chances. We just, as a group, we need to find a way to put the ball in the back of the net and just keep going and keep being resilient. And find a way to win. I think that's where we're lacking right now.
How frustrating is it to let this game get away from you guys?
It's very frustrating. I think we're very heartbroken by this one. Not like we're not heartbroken by all of them, but this one hurts a lot in the moment, and we're just trying to find a way to win, and we're struggling. So I think we all need to look in the mirror and come back next week for another home game. And
Matt Edwards with Matty Cruz after the match. And so, you hear Matt Edwards, you hear Jay Fortune, and two ropes to your question. Sometimes it just comes to availability. And there are times where you have, and it happens in any sport, where when it comes to trying to work on a deadline, you're trying to turn things quickly. And so sometimes it comes down to availability, sometimes it comes down to deadlines. And so that's I guess that's the short answer to all of this. So let me say hi to everybody. And I'm glad that everybody got to catch up with Rich. I'm glad you came down. And I'm glad that you got to catch up with everybody when you got to come down here to Mercedes-Benz. I forgot to ask, how did you get to the stadium? Did you take MARTA, as it was suggested by Will, or did someone come and get you? That's my first question. Let's see. Morning, Abby. My Man City fan friend is in shambles. Understandably so, considering, Ricky, what happened on the weekend. There is a moment that we do need to discuss in that match, and we'll see what Bart has to say about it. And what I will do is I'll do the screen sharing thing just so we can show the piece. But once again, you're looking at a particular freeze frame of video and trying to interpret from there. But we will see, because I do, in fact, have questions as well when it comes to contact of the ball outside of the 18. But yes, understandably, that Man City would be in shambles after what happened. But yeah, and so, like I said, Abby, right now, we don't know what the status of the field is for Friday. And it is a match tonight with Crown Legacy, 6:30 here on the network, 7:03 kick from Matthews. So, yes, so after Manchester United, and so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in the Europa final, and any screaming that you may hear would be from Drew Dickinson. So that would be pretty much how it would be. Morning, Katie Weaver. And that's good to see that one. And Abby did mention this moment, and I think it's the moment that happened late, and I think it's a player bracing themselves on the field inside the 18. I think it was a move with about 10 to go, and it was a shot inside the 18, but you see a Philadelphia player trying to brace themselves, and I think that's why you don't get that call. But we'll go over that with Bart coming up in a sec. Morning, David. Didn't get to listen to a bunch on the radio. Making the runs progressive play sounded better. Mike and Jason clearly less frustrated. Well, and that was that definitely after the first 35 minutes, absolutely. You get your speed to run at Philly, and it's like I was looking at it in the first 45 minutes, and I'm like, look, run them into the ground. Run them into the ground because of the lineup that they had trotted out there, Nathan Harriel playing out of position and so on. Glesnes did not start. You did have a couple of changes from the midweek, but I looked at them, and they looked tired in that first 35 with what Bradley Carnell is expecting them to do. And then you end up with, once again, for however the switch gets flipped, and then for that final 10, and then for the next 15, it was all Philadelphia. But Abby's like, get the youngins in. And she thinks it's time to sit some of the DPs. Katie Weaver, Mosqueda hasn't been a super sub, still back from injury, seems lost. And Ropes, you're not alone in this. Frustrating to have these conversations again after last season. Number of folks at games do show. And Michael, you're not wrong. Club needs to show some hope. Michael is of the mind of sitting the DPs and bringing in youngins. So we'll see what it looks like with that coming through. So, Rich, Rich, like you said, leaving Atlanta with 3 points. Yeah. Good to see you. And let's see. So, hi. Morning, Abby. Morning, Emilio. Morning, Wiley. Took Lyft to the hotel and walked to the Gulch. 20 minutes, but it felt long. Yeah. I mean, sometimes to get to lot 17, it sometimes does feel, and also if it's like 98,000 degrees, then that 20-mile walk does seem to be a bit long. Graduation weekend. I forgot about that. That is absolutely true, that it was graduation weekend. People can find tickets to be picked up on the secondary market. And Abby, to my point about running folks into the ground. You're at the Hilton. Okay, so yeah, that is a bit of a far poke, and trying to cut across from the Hilton. And also you're going uphill, and then you're going downhill. You're going uphill at the early part of your walk, and you're trying to cut across from things off the Hyatt. Okay, so but still. You're. I think if I remember correctly, the Hyatt. Yeah, you got some, and you're dealing with crosswalks and not having traffic go your way and all that kind of stuff. So no, I can definitely understand how that ended up as a 20-minute walk for you, Rich. But anyway, I'm glad that Rich made the roadie, and I'm glad that you guys got to catch up with Rich. It was very, very. It's always cool when our plus ones from other markets get to work their way here and catch up with everybody. So that's the fun part about all of this. So once again, Bart Keeler coming up in a couple of minutes. We'll talk about what happened in cards and calls. We do have a couple that I have questions about, and we will continue to show. There was one play in Serie A where you kind of sit there and you're going, okay, so it looks like one team's trying to get screwed out of a title or European places and what have you. So we'll get into that. We'll get into the FA Cup. We'll get into the quote from our dear friend Lionel Messi after Orlando. The purple team put the whooping stick on Messi and friends. And as we have seen with the way that they are lined up, if you have, and this is no different stylistically when it comes to Messi and friends, but if you have Messi and Suarez in your lineup, once again, you know you're defending with 9. And so you're going to have all of those not named Messi or Suarez defending. That's just how this is. I mean, Lionel Messi will come back, and he'll be there for the tail end of the attacking third. But you're defending with 9. That much has not changed. But Orlando, especially with the Gallese outlet to Muriel, found a very, very quick transitional opportunity, and they were clinical and took advantage of it. So it was one of those where Mascherano and Messi and friends are going to have to take a bit of a look, and we'll see what happens. But they've got a couple days to do that before they get into the activity of next week, and it's another 3-8 for a lot of folks, 3-7 for some others like Atlanta United, where it is Cincinnati, it is Purple Team, and then it is a road trip to Red Bulls. So literally 3-8, nothing happening for a week, and then 3-7. Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So 3-7. That's how I call it, 3-7 and 3-8. So you have the 2 home matches left, and then you're on the road. I mean, literally, you are not here in June because of Club World Cup. You're not here in July because of Club World Cup. So you got to get stuff figured out. And by the time you are back here for home matches, it is the second half of the season. And that's where you are right now if you're Atlanta United. That's where you are right now with a handful of clubs trying to chase after getting into the postseason, just into the postseason. I'm not saying top 4 or anything, just to get into the playoffs. And last night, the winless streak for LAG reached 14. They had a 1-0 lead. Marco Royce getting on the board. Then 7 minutes later, Denny Bouanga scores to make it 1-1. Then it ends up at 2-2. And it was 2-1 LAFC, 2-2 LAG came back with an equalizer, and that was how it finished. But that doesn't help you in the win column. So the winless streak to start the season, MLS record 14 for LAG. And they have signed Greg Vanney to a contract extension. That was one of the things that happened over the weekend that we did not get the chance to discuss. So it's so that is where things stand with with LAG right now, because they'll have their week and then they'll have their 3. But right now, So, Rich, Union hosting Messi and friends on Saturday. 90% of the people who've never been to a Union game in insert team Messi jerseys. Yep. And Rich said some Union fans and him did say that even though Atlanta isn't performing well, City still had a vibe of game day jerseys and flags everywhere. Philly still feels like people don't know the Union exists. And I would imagine that, Rich, is a handful of different things. It's A, being in Chester. B, promotion. Oh, I forgot to do that this morning. The level of the level of promotion that is done in town, I would imagine. And so you have all of these different things that are there that are a part of why people are wondering about Philly. And they're locked into the Phillies and not the Union. All right, so now we're going to try something. We're going to try and see what happens once we give Bart's studio setup the weekend off to kind of reorientate itself. Because you'll remember the adventure that we had on Friday where Bart's setup kind of took the weekend off. And it started early. So let's see what's up with Bart.
Okay, is it working?
Hey!
John, I don't understand. It's the same setup. I even tested it the same way last Friday, and then today it just does. I don't know, John.
Oh, that's
I don't know.
fantastic. That's great. Well,
Technology.
of course, it's sitting there and it's like, well, it's a Monday. I guess I may as well damn work.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I know that we do have a lot of different things to get into when it comes to reffing down here and cards and calls and such. When it comes to national team things, what is the latest? Are there any rumblings one way or the other? Is there any news? What do we need to know when it comes to national team stuff right now?
Well, this week, supposedly,
Supposedly.
we will be receiving the 26 player roster for the Gold Cup this summer. I also expect this week we will get the roster for the U.S. women's national team training camp, which they have a game on May 31st, John. So that roster I expect will come out this week as well. So we may get double rosters this week.
It's a double roster week.
I know. We do know that there was the preliminary roster put out. It was not published, but some sources on the Twitterverse did find it or was given it. And so we do know a few names on the preliminary roster. But John, as you know, preliminary just means these are the players that we have identified that then we will then whittle down. Somewhat interesting is Damian Downs, who is the striker for FC Cologne over in the now first Bundesliga. They were in the second Bundesliga, got that promotion. He was listed. He is a kind of a dual national with USA and Germany. He was listed on that preliminary roster, as was Richie Ledesma, who has been flirting with the USA and Mexico. He's only played for the United States, but there are plenty of rumors that he is transferring from PSV to Liga MX, and he is on our preliminary roster. So, what does that actually mean, John? Who knows? I don't think it would be crazy for Ledesma to be included in the full Gold Cup squad, especially if you're talking about 26. He's a guy who has been playing right back primarily for PSV, but who made his start in his career as kind of a right midfielder, right winger. Can also play a little bit of attacking mid. So it wouldn't shock me if he gets called into the Gold Cup. But it also wouldn't shock me if he doesn't, because he doesn't want to commit. But look, man, you got a summer to figure it out. I feel like this is, you got a World Cup next year. So between USA and Mexico, one of them you got to pick. So I think he should try to make that decision quickly.
How many dual nationals right now are currently in the portal and trying to figure out where they need to be when it comes to recruiting teams?
So that's a tough question, because some of them are, I know for a fact it's Ledesma, right? Mm-hmm. There's at least one. I think Luna is kind of in that, but he made his decision back in March when he decided to play for the U.S. men in the CONCACAF Nations League finals. I think Ledesma is really the only one that we know that is actively in the trying to figure out. Some of the others, Noakai Banks is one, also from Germany. They have a designation already, right? Because of birth and where they've played.
Right.
So it's not necessarily a one-time switch, but they would have to say, yes, I'm playing for the United States. And there are a few, but not like, there's only a couple that I would say are high importance. One of those, we said, Damian Downs, who, is in that USA Germany military, situation, like a lot of guys have been. Noakai Banks is another one, and he hasn't really been part of the any U.S. men's national team roster or anything. And then, like I said, Richie Ledesma for USA and Mexico. But he has played for the United States, so I think he might actually have to file a one-time switch if he does want to go to Mexico.
Are there any folks out there right now that have not been capped that you feel need to get a look, like Abe Banks or anything like that? Who is still resting on zero that you're like, nah, somebody needs to get a look here?
Well, let me Google this real quick, because I need to make sure he doesn't have any caps.
Okay. Well, all right.
Um,
Well, if we say under 5, how about that? Well, that
well, I don't think he does not have any senior national team caps. I know that much for sure. He did play 7 times for the U17s and twice for the U20s, and it is the goalkeeper of San Diego FC, CJ Dos Santos.
Okay.
He is a guy who grew up in the Benfica youth system. Is originally from Philly, so he also comes from the Philly Academy originally.
Right.
And look, goalkeeper is a thing that we don't know what's going on. I think that's fair, right? Congrats to Matt Turner for winning an FA Cup this weekend, but he didn't play in the final. And I think that explains where he is with his club at Crystal Palace.
Right.
There are obviously some other options out there. Diego Coquin, who has been called up and never played, but he is playing for like in the third La Tres Liga. I don't know what they call it over there. For the Barcelona, youth team. I think he is a guy that you look for 20, 30, even 4, to be quite honest, because he's only like 19.
Yeah.
But CJ Dos Santos, who is 24 years old, came back to the U.S. to play for San Diego FC. I think he is a guy that, as I don't know if it's necessarily a cap, John, but I think he should be looked at because he's one of the better goalkeepers in MLS this year. Not just his team being good at keeping the ball out of the net, but his post-shot expected goals per 90 is really good, and his total post-shot expected goals, which is just a fancy way of saying he saved shots that he probably shouldn't save.
Okay.
So the opposite of Brad Guzan. And I think that, that would be someone that, again, 24. So he and, Roman Celentano, Matt Freese a little older, but, Patrick Schulte, they're kind of in that same age group of like, they may not be the guy for 2026, but to me, they're the guys that we're looking at for 2030, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. You mentioned others that were on the men's national team. Some news on the women's side. Kat Macario, Naomi Girma won Women's FA Cup, beating Manchester United 3-0.
Yeah.
But
we should talk about that, right? Because Girma and Macario winning, but playing John, another U.S. women's national team player, and Fallon Joyce for Manchester United, who by all accounts will be on that team of the year for the FA Women's Super League, which got a rebrand, which is terrible. And that's great, right? We get double FA Cup winners from both. You get Chris Richards and Matt Turner on the men's side, Macario and Girma on the women's side. So, basically, if you want to win an FA Cup, you should probably get an American on your team.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Facts are facts, John.
Well, but I think that just as important is the fact that Kat Macario is getting these reps.
Is playing soccer, yes.
I mean, and the fact that you know what she is capable of and what you'd like for her to do on the women's team side, having this first step in this first stage is big as the women's national team continues to push forward.
Look, John, I think it's no secret that Vlatko Andonovski wanted to build a team around Katarina Macario for that 2023 World Cup.
Right.
And unfortunately, he had zero clue how to switch from that and forced Alex Morgan to do Katarina Macario things. And they are both great players, but both very different types of strikers. Kat has been a player that this national team has needed for quite some time. I think she is a more versatile and dynamic player than Sophia Smith at that central striker position, but Soph and Kat together provide something that is no country could provide. You could start one, bring on the other, and you're going to cause defenses a lot of pain either way. She is, I'm glad to see her getting back to, if not better than what she was, because I think she's older, more experienced, kind of has a better idea of how she wants to play and who she is as a player. And which sometimes, having what amounted to almost 2 years off, John, gives you that perspective. Obviously when you're recovering from knee surgery, you are doing a lot of, for those of you who haven't had a catastrophic knee surgery, you're doing a lot of drills that not just strengthen your knee, but you're doing a lot of little basic fundamental drills again, right? Because that's part of like building back repetitions and strength and all that. And that can help too, because you're realizing how to do things maybe in a better way, in a different way. She's come back, and Chelsea has been judicious in how they've played her, which I think is smart. And I think it's nice to see finally her getting the minutes that I think we've all wanted to see. Again, we got a roster probably for the women coming out this week. She'll be on that roster, right? We got plenty of matches. I'm not quite sure, John. I will say I don't know how this is going to work with the schedule. Is you've got 2 matches, May 31st, June 3rd.
Yeah.
And then you take a couple weeks off, and you come back. You play Ireland and a couple matches at the end of June, and then Canada on July 2nd for some sort of patriotic chest beating match. And I'm not quite sure what that roster is going to look like and how much we'll have a changeover. It could be that this initial camp, the games against China and Jamaica, are a kind of second choice roster, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. Just to give players like Kat, Girma, Fox, Heaps, others that play in Europe / a lot of the NWSL ladies, just to, hey, enjoy the little break in the season or after the season. And then you come back in June. Or it could be that Emma goes, hey, I'm trying to put together my best squad, and I get you for an extended amount of time. Plus you get a little break in between if you're one of the European players. And if you're an NWSL player, you just got to play a lot.
What have you thought about Emma Hayes' approach, where even in a tournament where it's I'll take your term, the chest beating tournaments, where she's focusing on the larger picture. Mm-hmm. It's while it'd be cool to win it, instead of we're out there to win it. It's it'd be cool to win it, but I got stuff I got to focus on. What have you think of this inverted approach almost when it comes to Emma Hayes in tournaments?
Look, I think one of the issues that Vlatko ran into with the COVID year, right, is there is an expectation on the women's national team that it wins. And I don't just mean you go out there and you play well and, hey, if you don't win the tournament but you still played all right, it's fine. It is very Brazil, right? You either win or you lose. There's zero in between, right? A little bit Ricky Bobby. If you ain't first, you're last.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think Vlatko got into that problem with the 2021 Olympics not winning it, the 2020 and kind of panicked, right? Because we didn't have a full changeover of the roster, which I think was kind of his goal, would have been his goal after 2020. Well, you go up to 2021, he didn't change over the roster because you had to play Pino and Lloyd and all these players who you feel like you owe them a final Olympic Games, right, even though they had just won back-to-back World Cups. I don't think you needed to give them that. Now you look at what Emma is doing. She is, I think she changed over the roster a good bit heading into the Olympics last summer. Part of that was because a lot of players retired. Part of that was necessary, right? But now you're seeing her actually taking stock of the pool, which again is, I think, something that for whatever reason we didn't get to do last cycle, and you saw how that hindered the team in 2023. And so as you look at this right now in 2025, John, we got 2 years, 2 years and 2 months, right? 2 years and a month until we play in a World Cup, which take your time, get the best players available. It also helps that you have, 2 of the players, 2 of Triple Espresso decided they want to start their families, which now is the best time to do it. Congrats to Mal, congrats to Soph.
Yeah.
So you kind of have a natural opportunity to start doing these field expansions, if you will. Let's actually uncover these rocks. With a league and NWSL that is the deepest in the world, you might as well try to find out what you have at home and see how they can perform on the international stage.
I forgot to ask you this the last time that you were with us. We had the Hall of Fame inductions. What did you think of Carly Lloyd's speech? as he takes coffee.
John, have we ever talked about Carly Lloyd before on this podcast?
I don't think we have depth into Carly Lloyd. No.
All right. Anyone who knows me outside of this little podcast, and maybe people who do know me, know I'm not a fan of Carly Lloyd's.
Right.
I will say I think that it was nice to hear that she at least admitted, not necessarily apologized, but admitted and recognized that she was not the best teammate.
Yeah.
She still tried to tell everyone why she was right for being a terrible teammate.
Yeah.
But look, I think the problem is for Carly that I have with Carly Lloyd is she is a fantastically gifted soccer player who, obviously in 2015 was a great catalyst for that tournament. Obviously getting the hat trick in the final. I do think Carly thinks a lot more of herself than she actually deserves. But if you ask Carly, you got to bet on yourself and you have to think that you're the best. But I'm glad she at least acknowledged that she wasn't a great teammate. But congrats to her getting in the Hall of Fame. She absolutely deserves it, right? That she is a Hall of Fame player.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and then you had Mary Harvey. That was a part of what happened in Dallas, and so I mean, it was for me. I'm always one of those individuals that when I am looking at any kind of a Hall of Fame induction, I want the folks from the beginning of the conversation in first, because I don't want them because when I'm voting in these situations, my vote is more tilted toward the earlier Trailblazers because I don't want them forgotten. I feel the further away that we get from those in the early parts of the discussions. So in this case, we'd be talking like about the 91s and such.
Mm-hmm.
So, someone like a Mary Harvey, I'm glad that she is finally getting her due 34 years after 1991.
Yeah.
And I would be leaning in that direction when it comes to my voting habits because I fear that the further away we get from a generation and you get to that next generation of voters and the next generation of voters where you may not have the access, you may not have the video, you may not have all those things readily available to you to be reminded about someone. It's more the word of mouth. Well, and when I saw this individual at this tournament, in the early days, I'm always I'm leaning toward the history before I come forward, because in this modern age, when it comes to voting, it's easier to remember those in this era because of our access to all of the video and all of the media that are available to us. Those that weren't around when we had all that access to all of that different media, I fear may get lost in the discussion when it comes to Halls of Fame.
Well, I'll throw in not quite the same, because I think I agree that, Mary Harvey and others who were on that 91 team, which did not get the attention it deserved for many reasons, John. I'm glad we're getting to finally recognize them. But I think that also kind of, John, applies to another guy who was inducted into this Hall of Fame class, and that's Chris Armas, who, look, as a kid growing up as a Chicago Fire fan, Chris Armas is an absolute legend and one of the best players that MLS has seen. And that's not a hot take. That is a fact, and I'm sorry. A guy who, unfortunately, for 2 World Cups got injured at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And absolutely, maybe, I don't think he was ever a true starter for the national team, but one of those guys who I think is in that starting rotation in your midfield, especially the 2006 World Cup. I think a lot of people think of Chris Armas and what he's done as a coach, and, whether he's been successful or not is another thing.
Yeah.
But people forget he was a darn good soccer player. And I think that's what these Hall of Fame classes can remind people of, is there is soccer history in this country, and there were some good soccer players, not just in MLS, but also in this country, from the beginning. And Chris Armas has been there for a long time. Mary Harvey was there at the very beginning. There are others on that roster who deserve, Yeah, Rich. I mean, like Chris Armas playing for the Fire he was a great. I mean, also Chicago Fire used to be a very good soccer club. I know this is also something that people don't want to remember. Thanks, Peter Wilt, for being a great steward of that club for so long. Chicago used to be one of. I mean, they were making playoffs after playoffs every single year. Obviously, they won.
Oh, I mean, come on.
Yeah. They had they won not just the Open Cup or MLS Cup, but they won Open Cup in '98. Won 3 more times. Through the Peter Wilt era, unfortunately, things have happened since then, particularly an ownership change, and Nelson Rodriguez being not very good at soccer things. Found someone who's worse than people running Atlanta United, but it's been an unfortunate downfall for one of the clubs that was, one of the better clubs in the league. I mean, oh well. I could go on lots of rants about the Chicago Fire and how things are right now. But we're not here to talk about that.
Well, you want to go down the Chicago Fire route? We can go down the Chicago.
I don't think we need to go down that route too much.
Talk about Joe Mansueto and Bridgeview.
Yeah. Look, I'll just say this: I have confidence that Joe Mansueto will eventually get the things right because he actually is one of the owners. He and Arthur Blank, I think, are similar in the fact that they want to build good clubs and they have the money to do that. I think Joe is a little more invested in the actual soccer side of things than Arthur, just because he actually, I think, is a soccer fan, whereas Arthur is just a guy who wants to run things well. I think Chicago will figure it out. I actually, Bridgeview. Look, we just talked about it, last 2 weeks ago when our friend from Chicago came on about how even the Red Stars are trying to get out of Bridgeview. Yeah. It's a great building. It's in a bad place.
Well, but apparently
you built a 5-star hotel in Bankhead. That's just,
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, I think that the Fire lost out on 2 home games at the Spaceship because of Bears preseason game.
Mm-hmm.
So efforting. Let me check. And it's like late. So yes, because August 16th, they play all caps at SeatGeek. August 16th, and then September the 6th, they're back to SeatGeek because of the Bears. So,
really?
Yes, because of the Bears, they are back to SeatGeek. Wow. August 16th against all caps, September 6th against New England. And so that's what we're staring at with all of that. And so we now bring in Jarrett Smith to join us here on a Monday.
Jarrett.
Oh, I like that. I like the new
Calvin and Hobbes.
I like the new avatar, sir, as he tries to sit here and look at the news of the day. And so, Jarrett, what brings you in on Monday?
Well, it's been a bit.
And that is absolutely true.
It's between getting ready to move and then taking vacations and doing all this stuff. So it had been a minute. So
yes, why? Yes, it has.
Not much has changed. However, yeah.
Ooh, and Bart, to your point, Jeff Kassouf, as of 18 minutes ago, and once again, thanks to our intrepid producer Rich Ransom. Jeff Kassouf. The Stars are going to take on Orlando at Lakefront Martin on September the 7th because the lease at SeatGeek expires at year's end, and apparently Western is an option.
Look, I don't know if that exact stadium is what you would want, but if you can invest some money in that area and build up an actual soccer stadium that kind of looks a little more permanent, that's a great location, and I definitely think it's a better location than Bridgeview. The problem with Bridgeview is just, and I'll say this as someone who was there on opening day of the stadium. Great building. The fans are right on top of the field. that location. I mean, it's the only place in Chicago it seems like you can't get via public transit somehow. And it's just not fantastic for that. And Bridgeview itself is kind of I think they bet on Bridgeview. Bridgeview hasn't lived up to that. The city itself, the village, if you will, hasn't lived up to it. And you got to go somewhere where the people are.
What, you want people? You want people to come wandering into the door?
I mean, I think ideally, John, the Bears find a new stadium location. You renovate Soldier Field into a 35,000 seat soccer stadium, and you can put both the Stars and the Fire there and call it a day.
Stars and Fire. Jarrett, since we are kind of touring what's going on in Major League Soccer, I do have cards and calls to get into with Bart here. Let me kind of do.
We're gonna talk Messi.
We have not talked Messi yet, so let's talk Messi. Messi and friends got a thumping from the purple team this past weekend, and so after the match was over, the gentleman was not pleased about the situation with the gentleman with the whistles and the cards. So Lionel Messi, after the match on MLS refereeing, quote, and this is the short quote from Franco Panizzo et al., quote, "The MLS needs to look a little more at the refereeing." Of course, we're lacking the context about what happened, but Jarrett, go ahead.
I saw the GIF from Battle of Buster Scruggs where it's Franco on the gallows saying "first time."
Yeah.
And looking over, and I mean that's basically it, bud. It's your first time with MLS. Actually, it's not his first time because this happened, I think it was in the middle of the week or late last week against San Jose. Where Bruce Arena had to keep Messi from getting sent off because, color me shocked, Joe Dickerson was involved in a confrontation with a player. Look, I have beef with Joe Dickerson going back to the Thiago Almada fiasco from a couple years ago.
Absolutely.
And it's not just Thiago. It's not just that.
No.
It is the fact that more than once now, I have seen a referee, the same dude, on the field, getting into it with players after the games. Like, dude, just leave the field, man. Like, just extract yourself from the situation so that you don't end up in a situation where you're having to make a call, you're having to possibly send someone off, and you're doing more paperwork for yourself afterward. You're gonna have to answer questions from pro. You're creating more work. You're just even if the player is being immature and out of line, just extract yourself from the situation there. And credit to Bruce Arena in that one for, basically keeping Messi from getting tossed. But like, just get yourself out of that situation, man. I'm begging you.
Oh boy, yeah.
And I know there's nuance to all these things. There's always nuance. It's never as cut and dry.
No.
But like, yeah, Messi talking about the refs last night was very funny. And I mean, we can talk about the first goal, and is it a back pass? And you can argue it one way or another, but this is the multiple times now I have watched this Miami team when the whistle does not immediately blow when they think it should, they stop playing.
Yeah.
And that is on them.
Yeah.
You are not the officials in the game.
No.
This happened last year in the first round in the last game of the playoff against Atlanta when Bartoszewski scores the header. One of their guys lays down in the box. They stop playing.
Yeah.
This is not the first time. They just quit playing because they think the whistle should be blown.
Yep.
Y'all.
I mean, what's the number one rule, Jarrett, that you would tell a group of young kids coming out to play any sport? Any sport. Play to the whistle.
You play to the whistle. You're not the official.
Yep.
No. And
I mean,
or if you're in the SEC, you play through the whistle a little bit, but that's
play through the echo of the whistle. Isn't that the
that's what that's what those Les Miles LSU teams did back when their defense was them in Alabama were putting 4 guys in the NFL a year on defense. Both teams were. They both were they played until the echo of the whistle. If you took an audio file of the whistle, they were playing until the whistle stopped echoing
Yes.
through the sound waves, where even a cricket couldn't hear it anymore.
And okay, so for those that may have missed it, so the idea of back pass, no back pass, Bart, rules 101 on back pass.
So let me just first say that this is one of the most, you're not going to call that laws of the game, because the way we interpret what a back pass would be is very, very limited. It needs to be a directly passed ball from the foot of a defender directly to a goalkeeper. Okay? That is, it has to be very strictly within those confines, right? And so I will say, I think it's a fair question as to why this was not considered a back pass, because I do think it's very clear, and we don't judge intent, but you can look at the intent and say the intent was at least for the defender, the first defender, to lay off a ball in a passing-esque attempt to his teammate, his other defender there, right? I think that's kind of a fair interpretation of the situation. But even then, was that a pass, or was that just him dealing with the ball that kind of got kicked to him to deal with the attack that Messi was forming?
Yeah.
You know? Again, I don't think this is, I haven't seen any referee really call this in a game that was this, like, there were again, I understand the frustration. I don't see how this was going to get called when you look at how this law is applied across the spectrum in every level of every league around the world. I think this is one of those things where, you know, an attacker is going to go, "Hey, ref, that's," you know, and okay, well, you also yell for a goal, for a corner kick every time you take a shot and it goes out of play, even though it was never touched by anyone. So, you know, you're just crying wolf again. And you're just not, it's just not going to get called. Sorry. I mean, I know that's probably not a satisfactory answer. It's just not going to get called. It was not a direct pass to the goalkeeper. I feel very confident in saying that. Again, we don't judge intent, but it was not a direct pass to the goalkeeper.
Okay. And so that was, you know, in the laws of the game. That's why I want to break down these kinds of things and sit here and go, okay, this is why this and this is why that. And so, you know, I always want to make sure that everybody knows laws of the game, how to interpret it, how to look at things when it comes to these particular situations. Jarrett, since we are, go ahead, Jarrett.
No, we saw a good interpretation. I thought we saw a very good interpretation of it in Atlanta Saturday night with the penalty.
Yeah.
Where and Bart, I'll defer to you. Like, I'll tell you my opinion on it, and you can tear it apart however you want. That's fine. I don't blame the official for missing it in the moment, because Abram didn't make himself big in the way that we're used to thinking about it.
Right.
His arm wasn't above his head. He wasn't trying to make himself big in that way. I understand why you didn't call it in the moment, and I'm totally cool with it. And that's one of those moments where I thought Penso handled it really well, because, like, you have VAR. You're not 100% sure on that penalty. Maybe it goes off his arm. The first angle we got, I wasn't sure if it did or not. I saw it go off his leg, but then the second angle made it very clear. But he didn't call it immediately because he wasn't 100% sure, but he had VAR. VAR called it down, said, yeah, this is a penalty. You gave it. 10 out of 10, for as much as I just bag on the way Pro operates at times, and especially with VAR, I thought that was you know, as we're talking about, you know, things being right or wrong, I thought they handled it perfectly Saturday night, and they got it right.
Yeah, I think I was listening to, because I apparently can't get enough of John's voice, listening to the full-time report, driving home after beating my brothers in golf yesterday to celebrate their birthday.
Nice.
And I'm listening to the highlight, and Mike basically says it in the moment of like, oh, that's going to be a handball. And I think Abe also, John on the full-time report, is like, yeah, you saw it in the moment. You go, oh, did he block it? And then you look at it, you go, no, he did not block that. That was a handball. This is a handball for a couple of reasons, John. I know you asked me, like, if you're sliding, how does that work? Yes, if you're sliding and your hand is on the ground, because we do allow you to go, well, you kind of have to catch yourself. We're not vicious. His arm was above that level. I agree, Jarrett. It was not in the air, but it was definitely outside of what would be considered a natural silhouette. It did technically make his body bigger. But I agree, Jarrett. I think in the moment, this is a hard one for the center official to call, because your angle is probably not going to see that, because you're looking, one, you had the incident with Brad, so your focus is there. So your run has gone toward being able to call that. And then all of a sudden you have to adjust your run and your focus outside of your normal diagonal. So we have a left-handed diagonal. So you go from corner flag to corner flag in theory. If you're a referee at home, you have a diagonal. If you're an experienced referee, you have a somewhat of a diagonal. But, even then you have to veer off of that. So your angle, your field of vision is meant to be catching everything that the AR can't see, which is why you're going to the left side and your AR is on the right. Anyway, so from looking at it from a mechanic standpoint, you're probably not going to get it, Jarrett, to your point, the best, like, yeah, that's definitely a handball because of how this happened, right? This is not like my hands are in the air and you can go, yeah, obviously your hands are in the air. His hand was outside of his body, but not way out in a way that like his hand necessarily is extended. His arm was out, it was up, it hit his arm. It's a handball. It just is what it is.
Yeah, and it was one of those that, talking about it after the game with people, it's not, I'm not mad at Abram in that situation. I know Luis Abram has had his fair share of moments, but when Brad gambles on that ball because of the turnover and he doesn't get it, Abram has to slide. He's not putting his arm. I don't think he's. I think he's not trying to throw his hand up in the air and slap it down. Nope. He's trying to make himself as big as he can and trying to bend the rules a little bit, which is fine because I would ask any defender to do the same thing. But he's got to slide and make that play, and it's unfortunate. And it's kind of how you've been this year, which is you haven't been good enough, but on top of that, you've also been unfortunate. And that's a combination that puts you second from the bottom.
And
that's where you are.
And then there was and I know that Abby had mentioned this, and then there was, I want to say, the difference of making yourself bigger, and then the handball shout that happened against Philly, I want to say with 10 to go inside the 18, where you have the player for Philly, the defender inside the box, with his hands bracing himself, and that to me would be the indicator as to not making yourself bigger, natural position, natural motion
for
a player, and why that would not be considered in this case.
Correct. That is definitely your hand is there because that is like when you're on the ground, your natural inclination is to stop yourself from falling fully onto the ground.
Right.
And also I think in that moment he was also trying to like push himself up, I can't remember exactly, but it's one of those where this is a natural movement and position for what happened. It is, again, Jarrett, it's unfortunate, right? Because, if it's possible that maybe in another, sequence of events that gets called a handball. Not against Atlanta United this season.
Yeah, well, and that was why I wanted to discuss with you in the full-time report in the commercial break.
Yeah.
Where it literally is like, if you're sliding, it's not natural for your body to have hands forward. As you're sliding forward, you're going like this as you're sliding. And so that's why I thought that would be a natural motion with gravity. You're going this way, hands are going this way, and that would be considered a natural motion. And then Abram would not be called for the handball in that situation.
Well, again, it's about where his arm is. And since it's above, it wasn't on the ground, basically.
Yeah, so. And it's outside the silhouette and all that kind of stuff. There was so then would you have gone, because Abe had mentioned in full-time report that he would have gone dog so red. in that.
So this is an interesting question, right? Because it is dog show, and you don't not give a red card for a handball.
Yeah. See,
I don't have a great answer for this. I think a yellow card would have been fine in this scenario because I don't think it was an intentional handball or anything like that. It's like, I think it's not like he put his arm out to stop it.
Yeah.
But it's dog so, and it's a handball.
Okay.
We don't have double jeopardy within handballs, so yeah.
And I was fine giving the yellow.
Yeah.
Because to your point, like I think if his hand is way up in the air, and let's say it's a chipped ball and he slaps it down, I think we're having a different conversation.
Yeah.
It's the arms just out of his silhouette. He's bending the rules a bit, and he blocks it, and it gives him enough plausible deniability, I think.
Yeah.
For you to go, and I was fine with the call. I know some people thought the yellow was harsh. I'm like, that's a handball. I mean, it's not every foul is intentional. Like, and this is getting to the thing where we're judging intent, which is always a slippery slope with people. He tried to slide and make himself a little bit bigger, and it hit his hand. He didn't throw his hand up. I always go back to my favorite one still to this day. Actually, the day Atlanta United, the most pivotal day in Atlanta United history, is still that February night in Nashville in 2020. And shout out to the Nashville fans for booing Joseph as he laid on the ground with a torn ACL because their trash ass field had already claimed numerous NFL players. Nissan Stadium is notorious for its bad turf. I remember the end of that game was hilarious because Barco gets the ball on a break with the goalkeeper out of his box, and Barco tried to chip from the midline, and the goalkeeper just came out and volleyball spiked it down, and for some reason was not given a red card.
Yes.
And you know why it's not given a red card is because they said, oh, well, the dog so it doesn't meet all the D's of dog so, right? Because there were more defenders and all this bull crap. And I'm like, it was a shot.
It's one of those where, like, I will always go back to the Mark Geiger thing where he held up the rule book and bent it and said the rules can bend. Like, call the situation for what it is. When the goalkeeper comes out and Mutombo's a shot from mid.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I mean Country Joe Willis comes out there and he just absolutely volleyball spikes it, and Karch Karai and Steve Timmons would have been proud of it. And you don't get that either.
Yeah, I mean, Phil Dahlhauser blocked it. I mean, was
what a pull! Oh my god!
But I'm with you, Jared. Like that is where you go. That is a red card. Why did you not give that a red card? I also just want to shout out that we did win that game 2-1, and Joseph didn't score, and Nashville still hasn't recovered because they still think that we care about them in that way. We care about your stupid ass field hurting our players. Yeah. That's what we care about.
To be fair. I think Geodis is a fine playing surface. That was Nissan Stadium back in the day where the Titans play are playing for now until they are until they're getting their new stadium because they're publicly funding every stadium for billionaires. That Nissan Stadium surface was always just hot garbage, man.
Trash. Okay, so this is I need Bart, I need a ruling here on a particular event that happened in the FA Cup. And obviously, folks have put up still images just to emphasize moments. And I need your thoughts on this particular layout. So I'm going to actually screen share, which is dangerous. We know about me and technology.
Oh, no.
Yes. So this is what I'm staring at here. And I need that explained. Where you have Dean Henderson, who has a foot on the line.
Yep.
And he is making contact with the ball outside of the 18, but his body, except for the hand, is inside the 18.
So I'll say a couple of things about this. Let me take my referee hat off for like half a second.
Sure.
Should have paid more money, Man City. Maybe that's the problem.
They paid you think they didn't pay enough already?
Yeah, they should have paid more. Set. Cheat harder, Man City. Cheat harder.
Cheat harder,
no,
or
but
you end up with the same number of trophies as Arsenal did this year.
Yep. We didn't cheat hard enough. And now we got tariffs that are going to screw up our income because we get all of our money from Walmart. Anyway, looking at this, John, I do want to point out a couple things. First off, look, this is a handball. I don't think anyone who's looking at this shouldn't say that this is a handball. This is a handball. He is clearly handling the ball outside of the penalty area, right?
Yeah.
But notice where that assistant referee is.
Behind the play.
Right. He can't see for sure that ball is in or out of the penalty area. The referee obviously can't because they're not on that line. And then you have to go into, okay, well, does this count as dog-so? And how many defenders do you see in that area?
I believe I see 0 behind. Well, I have you've got this one here, which is in line with Eric.
Correct.
Yeah.
So defenders, there are reasonably a defender, if not 2, in the general area, right?
Yeah.
Direction to goal. I mean, it's not going toward goal.
No.
You can see from the other screenshot, he's very clearly going out, like away from goal. Distance to goal. Obviously, this is very close. You're 19 yards out. I think that's fair to say this is close enough to goal for a red card, but it doesn't meet all of the D's. So therefore, John, this is not going to go to VAR because this is not a match-changing incident.
Okay.
Right? Because match-changing incident is a red card.
Yeah.
Or a penalty, right? And this is neither a penalty kick nor a red card.
Okay. All right.
Is it a handball?
Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah. Considering you see Dean Henderson like right here, it's like he's caressing. He's caressing the ball.
I think Erling Haaland should just boast a little bit more about how good he thinks he is. Maybe that'll get him a handball call. But no, this is the problem where legitimately this AR is not in line with the play. I don't blame him. These guys are really fast. But it is. This is going to be the problem there. Now, I also think he probably could have seen that this was not inside the penalty area, because it doesn't matter where your feet are. It matters where your hand is in relation to the ball. And he's outside the penalty area handle. I mean, it's very clearly outside. But yeah.
And that was the other point that I wanted you to make, is that it doesn't matter if you're a keeper where your feet are in this. 99% of your body can be inside the 18. It's the fact that you have gone past the plane of the 18. You've gone into the field of play, and you are caressing the ball, so Erling Haaland has no opportunity to have a shot on target.
That is correct.
Yes, the plane of the 18 extending into the universe as we speak. So that's.
But again, this is not dog-so, and it's not a penalty kick.
Okay.
Therefore, this is not. Now, I will say I think VAR looked at it, but because this is not dog-so, or a penalty kick, we're not doing anything about it.
Okay. All right. So, what do folks need to keep an eye on with what's going on with SoccerForUSPod?
We are deciding what we're going to talk about this week. It may end up being the uniforms that just released last week, because we agree that they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
The rosters will come out a little too late for us to record and get that out this week, so we'll talk about them next week as we look forward to. I think I counted at least nine games in 36 days.
9 games in 36 days.
Possibly, John. 12 games in 39 days.
Man.
For the U.S. men's and women's national team. Plus, I think the women's U20 team plays CONCACAF championships in June, if I'm remembering my schedule correctly. So a lot of U.S. games coming up.
Yes. And as always, my friend, it's great to have functioning studio equipment on a Monday.
Yes, it is.
Oh, man. Well, glad you're back as part of regular rotation, my friend. Great to see you. We'll catch up when there's stuff to talk about. All right, there goes Bart, and so now it's me and Jarrett. And Jarrett, one of the other things that I wanted to discuss with you is the reports that we are seeing out of St. Louis, and it is the distinct possibility that Olaf Melberg might be out of a gig. And it would be 3 months in, and St. Louis has had 3 draws and 7 losses in their last 10. So there are reports out of Sweden, and specifically Sportsbladet, that Olaf Melberg will be sacked along with his number one assistant after everything that has been going on in St. Louis, or the things that have not been going on in St. Louis with all caps. Sportsblot had initially reported his hiring, and so this morning, our time, they are reporting that he is set to be sacked. There is supposed to be, at 1 o'clock Eastern time, noon local time, a pregame presser to the Open Cup match, and that is supposed to be going down in a couple of hours. No word on whether or not, A, that presser is still going to happen, B, if Olaf Melberg is going to be a part of that presser, or C, what that's going to even look like. They're going to push it back, because you're at MD -2, and it's a match on Wednesday. So no idea what's going on out of St. Louis. We're kind of keeping an eye on things through Matt Baker and Swedish sources there, but it looks like right now that Olaf Melberg might be sacked out at all caps.
And I can give you this from Tom Bogert, who just put this out. Any rumor that St. Louis City have parted ways with head coach Olaf Melberg is premature for the moment, but the club's leadership continue to evaluate the team's performance and progress. I don't know if that is the preamble to the dreaded vote of confidence.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if we are in a situation. You know what, Rich? I get one win a weekend. You can have the game. I'll take this. We'll call it even.
There you go.
I wonder if we're kind of in a similar situation to what Atlanta was in last year. Mm-hmm. Because remember, the pressure was ratcheted up on Gonzalo Pineda. Mm-hmm. Pineda was under a lot of heat. You had a midweek game coming up with the U.S. Open Cup, which you ended up losing. It was the Indy 11 game.
Yep.
Let's see the timeline. 1 second. United.
Yep.
Schedule. Because the timeline's kind of similar, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Let me get to U.S. Open Cup. When was that? So that was July 9th. And when was the loss? Okay, you'd already lost the game by then. Because he was already gone, because he was gone June 2nd.
Right.
So you had that okay, so it's May 21st is what I'm thinking of, when they beat Charleston in Charleston.
Okay.
You had so that's May 29th. May 21st. Okay, so May 21st was that game. You had just drawn with Nashville, in Nashville.
Right.
Then you had the Open Cup game where the pressure's on. You lose to LAFC at home on the weird deflected free kick where Brad got sent off, and he probably shouldn't have gotten sent off.
Yeah.
Well, it should have been a handball on LAFC, and it wasn't given, and LAFC scores on a deflected free kick to win the game. Yeah. Then you beat Inter Miami and lose to Charlotte, and then Gonzalo Pineda's fired. I wonder, sorry, what I'm getting to here, and I got distracted by the schedule, is I wonder if we're in a similar situation with Melberg, where if they're analyzing his job, I'm not saying an Open Cup game is going to, save or doom it.
Yeah.
But if we're kind of in a similar thing where we're analyzing how the Open Cup goes, and then we're analyzing next weekend, and then we start talking about decisions being made.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where we're at with this right now, and I think it's a unique situation. Because if it happens, it's going to be, you're going to see a lot of calls for the same thing here in Atlanta, I think. From a number of people, whether you should or should not, because we talked about last year that firing Gonzo he had been here for 2.5, 3 years at that point. You hadn't gotten over the hump. And I said then, and I'll say now, even if you decide to move on from Ronnie Dyla, a lot of the issue is this roster. And I think it is the amount of want in the roster at times.
Yeah.
And the amount of give a damn in the roster, and the amount of fight. I can go over the moments that happened Saturday where you're not fighting for each other the way I think you should be.
Yep.
But I think the summer window needs to be a bloodbath potentially.
It probably
with guys. What's up?
No, I'm right there with you. I think it could be very, very intriguing on multiple levels.
Yeah. Bogert goes on to say, sporting director said that he was embarrassed by recent performances and said the club is at the lowest point we can be. That's a lie. You're not Montreal. It can always be worse, no matter how bad you think your day is going.
Or
I
LA.
promise you.
Yeah.
I promise you, your day can get worse. This whole thing, and we love hyperbole, and this is a cultural thing, man. Where everything sucks. This is the worst thing ever. Like, I promise you, there's somebody in worse shape than you.
Yeah. LA.
Like, I promise you. There's the Galaxy. There's Montreal. Hell, Atlanta just spent $50 million and are in second to last place in the East. I promise you, it can be worse. And even for Atlanta, like, it can be worse. Like, Galaxy haven't won a game this year.
No. 0-10 and
3. It can always be worse, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. I'm sure there will be calls in Atlanta for similar things, even though the situations aren't the same. And like I still think that if you were to do something like that here, it is another manager going, because I think there are flaws in how this roster was built. And flaws in like the grittiness of it, man.
Yeah. There was, and I mentioned this in the full-time report, and it was the moment when Damiani decided to try and wrap Brad Gazan around the near post, and you see
Jay's the only one who stood up to him.
Right, and you see Jay getting in, and Jay went full extended index finger, getting right in Damiani's grill about it. And
He's the only one who did it, and yeah. God bless Jay Fortune. He needs to be pinned. He needs to be in ink on every sheet.
Yeah.
Every game sheet, every 11.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to get him in there. For what it's worth, I like the little tweak that you had where you played him and Miranchuk in front of Tristan.
Yeah.
And anyone who is saying that Ronnie Dial is not trying things, you just go ahead and just change the channel, man. Just tune him out, because he's trying different things. He's trying different combinations. He's trying different looks. He's gone at 3 in the back to give you more security as a guy who loves to play a 4-2-3-1. Like, he's trying different combinations. He's trying guys in different positions with different ideas, with different instructions. None of it is working, but it's not like he's sitting out there running the same 4-2-3-1 out there for 90 minutes every game waiting for it to click. He is actively trying. It is not clicking. This is different than, again, just running the same 11 out there every week in the exact same look. But, man, when your 22-year-old homegrown midfielder is the one who is
getting in people's grills.
And the same thing when you had the game in Philly when Noah Cobb is the one getting in, trying to get people riled up, man. Like, I don't know how many times on this
you had
show.
Matt on the flex on the tackle in the game recently, where he went full super.
Yeah.
Full,
Matt did it Saturday. He blocked a shot Saturday, and he got lit into it, and he got fired up about it, as he should have.
Yeah.
Because it's at the end of the first half. It's kind of a weird multi-deflectional thing that falls for Philly, and he steps in front and blocks it. He was fired up, as he should have been. But I shouldn't have to rely on my kids in my early 20s, late teens to be the emotional center for my roster.
Yeah.
I should not. And if I cannot get you to rile up and fight, then I don't know what to do. I'll find someone who will.
Yeah.
And that means I go into the window and I lose money on a couple deals. I don't care.
Yeah.
Made God knows how much money last summer.
42.
But great.
Yeah.
If I got to eat some money to turn over some things on this roster, if I'm worried about how hard they'll fight, then that's what I'm going to do. That's what if I were in charge, that's what I would be doing. I'd be looking at this roster like, where do we need to make changes? Oh, we brought in these guys because they hit certain metrics certain advanced metrics we're looking at. That's great. But when push comes to shove, you still have to play the game on the field. And right now, they're just, if for no other reason, you're not scoring goals, man.
Yeah.
Like, at all. You're scoring a goal a game at most. If you can get one across the board, right now that's feeling like an accomplishment.
Yep.
I know, Rich, I know you said you were nervous in the final minutes of the game. I promise you most people were in that building were not. Most people in that building were, and you can call it pessimism. You can call it whatever you want. I was not laughing, but like kind of doing the crawl space laugh from Breaking Bad. That in the last 90 seconds of 9 minutes of extra time, you did not put one ball in the box. Even a prayer of a long ball. You didn't. In the last 90 seconds, you played the ball back. At that point, just get bodies forward, man. You're trying to salvage the draw. Just get bodies forward, pump it into the box. It almost worked for you one time. You forced a good save off of a Derek Williams shot where Latte Lot pulled it down, laid it off to Williams. Which is the right move because Latte Lot's not facing the goal. And he puts a shot on frame. It's blocked, saved, whatever. Like that's what you have to do though. When you are in the tactic free zone with under 4 minutes left. It needs to be the ball pumped down the field. Just get bodies down there and try and make something happen. And John, I was having a damn moment Saturday night because in the last 90 seconds you didn't do that.
Yeah.
Like at one point like Brooks Lennon throws it in, or not Brooks Lennon, excuse me, he was off the field by that point because he was banged up. I forget who it was, throws it in, and it just gets cycled backward. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, the ball has to go forward. It doesn't have to be pretty. You're not trying at that point to suck them into to get up the field so you can create an artificial transition. No, you're getting bodies forward. Derek Williams is playing up top for a reason. You're getting bodies forward. You're trying to knock the ball down, and you're trying to make magic happen. And you were desperate. And that's okay in that moment. And the fact that you just didn't even not even get a shot away, because you're never going to guarantee a shot in those situations. You didn't just boom it down the field. I don't know, man. Like I said, Rich, I know you said you were nervous in those last few minutes. I was not. I was not expecting anything of substance out of those moments, man, because I felt like when that shot was saved, and it's a great save, by the way, by the kid, by Rick, who had 3 or 4 in that game that were fantastic saves. That kind of felt like the air came out the balloon. So anyway.
Yep. A couple of quick things before we get out of here. Looks like Man City's withdrawn in the race of Florian Wirtz. Remember tonight, 6:30 pregame for the Twos at Matthews to take on Crown Legacy. It is listed in the schedule as a home game for the Twos and Steve. As Kennesaw's filled at the fraction.
That's a whole different conversation that God.
Yeah, listed as unplayable, and so they're at Matthews tonight, 6:30 pregame. 7:03 kick. You'll hear from Steve Cook. You'll hear from Rodrigo Neri. You'll get into the weekend that was, and we'll have the call for you here at soccerdownhere.mixler.com. 6:30 pregame, 7:03 kick. Manchester United optimistic and agreeing about Mateus Cunha this week. Will still looks like he might be the next Southampton manager coming over from Lens. Let's see. Bournemouth want 40 million plus pounds for Milos Kirkesh, who is keen on a move to Liverpool. Liverpool leading the race. Bournemouth haven't had any formal bids. That could change soon. And so that is just, and we'll keep an eye, obviously, on the Olaf Melberg situation today. Tomorrow, we're going to be getting into a little bit of high school in hour number 1. It'll be John Jackson from BT and Declan Abernethy from Drew Charter. Hour number 2, we'll probably get into the week that was in Major League Soccer and get into what happened tonight with the Twos. We'll get into that in hour number 2 tomorrow. Wednesday, it's Tyler and Dylan. And we are at the Moxie on Wednesday night, 7:00 start. Looking forward to seeing everybody there. Laurel Failer from Queen City Press is going to join us. batting leadoff on Thursday as she's on her way to practice for the Oppo research for the FC Cincinnati match. Looks like we're going to catch up with Decatur FC at 9:30. Nino and Nico in the Power Hour on Thursday. And then Friday, getting you ready for the match against OCB, which is scheduled for Kennesaw at 7 o'clock. So we'll keep an eye on that and see. Scheduled for 7. So we'll see.
Look, that's more so than any year in the past. And I won't be here to see it locally.
Yes.
Not a mortality thing.
Yes.
I feel like this, more than any year, John, might be the last year of the twos at Kennesaw. This is multiple years now that this has happened.
Yeah.
And however you want to make things function, you cannot keep having games moved and rescheduled. You're losing a home game here. Now maybe you flip the schedule and you play a Crown Legacy game at home later in the season.
Well, and that's what I was thinking. If something was to happen with the OCB match, you flip it with the game in late August.
It's unacceptable though for
Yeah.
MLS Next Pro.
No question.
So I don't know what the contract looks like with Atlanta United and Kennesaw State, and a lot of times this is because KSU reseeds the field for football season.
Yeah.
And they do a great job with the playing surface in general because it goes through a lot.
Yes.
This isn't on the people. This isn't saying that they're bad at reseeding the field. The turf management people there do a lot because that field gets put through the ringer.
Yeah.
But to do that reseed, you got to tear the field up.
Yep.
I choose to believe that this is going to be the last year of Kennesaw State hosting Atlanta United 2. I don't know what you do.
Yeah.
I don't know where you go.
Yeah.
But this is multiple years now where you've had games moved because the field is ruled unplayable.
Right.
And that's not okay.
No.
It's not acceptable. Like I said, this is not on the people. For me, this is not on the people who do the turf management. They're doing their job.
Yep.
But you're gonna have to go somewhere where the schedule fits better to what you need. Because I know they're trying to do their job.
Yep.
But you got to go. You can't keep doing this. It's to me it's an unprofessional look, and you know that the club has to be embarrassed by it too.
Yep.
Because you are presenting yourself as one of the premier clubs in this country, and your second team is not able to play on the field because it's ruled unfit. And I don't know where you go, man. Like, I don't know. And it's great being up in the suburbs because it gives you a little more reach, gives you a little more unique situation. Amelia, I don't know with the turf. Kennesaw likes having natural grass. Like I said, the playing surface is actually great at Kennesaw usually. Like I said, they change out the grass in the winter and the summer because they play soccer and lacrosse on it. They do concerts out there. They play football out there. Like, they do good work. But when you change it out, you got to tear it up in the process. I don't know if you go down to Georgia State or something. Like I will long argued that you could go down to Georgia State. Have Arthur write a check to have them put down new turf because the lines are sewed into the turf at Georgia State.
Yes.
The football lines are. I've long argued, go down there, write a check, put down a new turf that can be scrubbed like you have at Mercedes-Benz, and play a second team down there and potentially play an NWSL team down there as well if you don't want to put them in the bins.
Right. Yep. You got all that to kind of sort out, and we'll start the sorting tonight at 6:30. Any other last thoughts? Because tomorrow's going to be high school, and the rest of the week that was in Major League Soccer. Last thoughts from you?
Keep an ey on the twos tonight. I said this last week. I'm going to be a little petty jerk about this for a minute. Look, usually social media pops off with the twos when they lose, and it has for years. And they've struggled for years. I get it. I would know. John and I and Jason know better than most because I will tell you that 9 times out of 10 when I have gone to cover twos games, that press box is me and whoever's doing media for the club, whoever's doing comms for the club. Occasionally someone else is in there, but it's usually just us. It's no one else except for the occasional person who pops in for a game or two a year. So trust me when I say I understand. They have not been a great team to watch the last few years. This team, I don't know how good they are on the grand scheme of things. I know they can be very good, and they're gritty as hell. And if there's a year to patronize the twos, this is the year to do it, because they have been pulling draws on the road where they have been going down and fighting back and showing some of the heart, John, that I want the first team to show.
Yep.
Like when the twos go down, they go chase a goal. They don't look sad. They don't look like they're feeling sorry for themselves.
Yeah.
They go chase and they make something happen. Gabriel Wisse being part of that, and an absolute delight to watch if you're looking for your next fun guy who might be a homegrown in a year or two.
Yep. Now, and to David's point, I would imagine Herndon is rehabable. You'd have to tear the stadium down and rebuild it. But if you wanted to do something with Herndon and have it as a part of that HBCU, revitalization of the West End.
I imagine it would be very expensive. Not to say that it's not worth doing. I'm just telling you it could be very expensive.
Yep. Gold Cup preliminary rosters have just been announced. And so all of that is ready to go. So, of course, Bart signs out. And so preliminary rosters, let's see if there's any surprises involving the U.S. roster. But once again, you're dealing with like 9 gazillion names that are a part of this whole thing. So
cross that bridge later.
Yes. So you end up with, for the USA, both Aaronsons, Tyler Adams, Patrick Ajimong, Max Arston, Falarin Balogun, Sebastian Berhalter on the preliminary national team roster for the Gold Cup. You figured that one was coming. Tristan Blackman, Chris Brady, Busio, George Campbell, Johnny Cardoso, CCV, Caden Clark, Luca Della Torre, Serginho Dest, Max Dietz for SPV GG Gruther Firth. And we'll keep an eye on that one. Damian Downs, as Bart had mentioned in the early go-round. Emeka Anelli is on here. Marlon Fossey. Alex Freeman. That's another interesting one out of Orlando. Matt Freese, Brian Gutierrez, Nathan Harriel, DeJuan Jones, Diego Koken, Richie Ledesma, Diego Luna. Let's see. Chris Hansen, Jack McGlynn, Mark McKenzie, Georgi Mihailovic, Matko Miljevic, Shaq Moore, Aiden Morris, Yunus Musa, Pulisic, Ream, Richards, Miles and Anthony Robinson, Josh Sargent, Joe Scally, Patrick Schulte, Zach Steffen, Quinn Sullivan, Tanner Tessman, Francis Tanner Tessman, by the way, Malik and Timothy Tillman, John Tolkien, Austin Trusty, Matt Turner, Brandon Vasquez, Brian White, Caleb Wiley is on the roster, Haji Wright, Griffin Yao, Sean Zawadsky, Alex Zendejas, and Walker Zimmerman. That is your 60-man preliminary for the Gold Cup and Team USA. So that is that's the rundown for this morning. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on everything that's going on out in St. Louis. We'll see if anything happens there, and we'll see as things continue to progress what it's going to be looking like as we go forward. Once again, tonight we got the twos pregame at 6:30, kickoff at 7:03. Tomorrow it's going to be a hybrid of high school and soccer is in session in hour number 1. We'll go through the rest of the week that was in Major League Soccer, plus any other breaking news that comes across our desk in hour number 2. So for Jarrett and everybody else, thanks to Bart, thanks to Abe, thanks to you for always dropping by and being a part of our conversations on Mondays. Jarrett, last words are yours on the day.
I have none.
Well, then
let's get through the week with the twos tonight. You do this again next week. So
what he said. Butcher Platiel, play it safe. End of the show. That means we get to do this. See you tonight at 6:30.